Welcome back. President Bola Tinubu has vowed federal support, for flood victims in Maiduguri and called on urgent action to address environmental issues. The President stressed the need for national unity in tackling climate change and pledged rehabilitation support. Let's take a listen to President Bola Tinubu from his visit to Borno State yesterday.
Additional tents due to the large number of people that have trooped in here. The Camp Coordination and Camp Management Office has also been set up to work with other partners. All the sectors, health, water, sanitation and hygiene, security and other sectors are being set up with partners supporting and
Your Excellencies, from the Senate President, the Chairman of Governors Forum, all the governors here present, my advisors and my friends, Shetima, thank you very much. All the way to the airport.
The flood caused by the Lao Dam collapse submerged over 70% of Maiduguri, displacing over 1 million residents and causing 30 deaths. Borno Governor Babagana Zulum, who received President Tinubu, urged for the dam's reconstruction with better hydraulics materials to prevent future disasters. Meanwhile, the National Emergency Management Agency NEMA has ramped up its response to the devastating floods in Maiduguri while deploying additional staff from Yola, Gombe, Jos and Abuja. NEMA Director General Zubair Umar is overseeing the rescue operations, supported by equipment such as canoes and mobile medical units. With over 2 million people affected across 4 local government areas in Borno and Yobe, NEMA is working to streamline its efforts and address critical needs in the flood-hit region. In Borno South, Senator Ali Ndume has urged the federal government to establish emergency feeding and medical centers for flood victims in Borno State. Highlighting the severe impact of the floods, Ndume praised Governor Babagana Zulum's efforts in setting up over 25 camps, but stressed that federal intervention is crucial. He proposed using Ramat Square in Maiduguri for the new centers, noting that the current aid in IDP camps is inadequate. Ndume emphasized that the federal response is essential to prevent a worsening humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Correctional Service, NCOS, has reported that 208 inmates are missing following the recent devastating flood in Maiduguri. Flood which submerged over 50% of the city and the surrounding caused severe damage to correctional facilities, including the medium security custodial center Maiduguri and staff quarters. NCOS spokesman Umar Abubakar confirmed that while 7 inmates have been recaptured, efforts are underway with security agencies to locate the remaining missing inmates. The public is assured that these incidents have not compromised overall safety. And moving over to the northwest now, as the threat of flooding looms, residents of Gorunyo local government area in Sokoto State are calling on the government to address the deteriorating conditions of the Yan Rimawa Dam. Local leaders, including Bello Mohammed and Nasiri Aliyu, warned that a dam collapse could lead to widespread disaster. The appeal follows recent flooding in Maiduguri, highlighting the urgent need for preventive actions. Efforts to reach officials from Sokoto River Rima Basin Development Authority for comment have so far been unsuccessful. In a similar development, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency (NIMET) has predicted widespread thunderstorms and rainy weather from today through Thursday. The forecast includes thunderstorms over parts of Bauchi, Kebbi, Taraba, Kano, Katsina, Adamawa, and Kaduna states, as well as across various regions of the north-central and southern Nigeria. NIMET advises residents to avoid flood-prone areas and stay informed through weather updates. The agency warns of potential urban flooding and strong winds accompanying the thunderstorm. The cholera outbreak in Adamawa State has resulted in at least 10 deaths and 76 confirmed cases, according to recent reports. The outbreak, which has been linked to the inadequate medical attention and delayed treatment, has exacerbated the health crisis in the region. Chairman of Yola North Local Government Area, Jibril Ibrahim, initially reported 4 deaths and 40 cases on Sunday. However, updated figures reveal the situation is dire, with health officials struggling to contain the spread of the disease amidst limited community cooperation. So that's what we're looking at: the dam, the flood, and government responses. So, Mr. President came back, and one thing you can take from President Tinubu is his ability to show that he cares. Some people may read meanings to the effort, but if you compare President Tinubu's handling of the flooding with President Muhammadu Buhari's handling of the flooding, his ability to appear on the scene and boost the morale of those who are afflicted is totally different. One would give that to him. And upon his return from the UK, having spent over a week out abroad, particularly in China for the summit, he just touched down, and the next day he was in Maiduguri to be with residents of Maiduguri. Paid a courtesy visit to the Sheru of Borno, whose palace was flooded. This flooding has had such impact that 70% of Maiduguri has witnessed one level of flooding or the other. And well, his visit is a morale booster for quite a number of people. But it beggars the point or the question: were there things that could have been done to avert the flood, or not the flood per se, because the flood is natural or the rains are natural, but rather the flood, particularly with regards to infrastructure? It appears that the Borno State government itself have been sitting on their hands with regards to what ought to have been done to help ameliorate the flood from even occurring in the first place. This is not the first time Nigeria is facing flooding. At least we could go back 12 years when we had mega floods in 2012 that led to widespread destruction and a loss of life across the country. And it's been a recurring decimal, so to speak, with almost the cycle being 1 or 2 years, depending on how much of rain we've had. But from the government dropping the ball in issues like building the Yasa and Hausa Dam on our side of the Benue to couple with what the larger dam is doing in Cameroon, to issues of maintaining dams like the Alao Dam, which report has it that just not too long before the dam gave way, the state officials went upon the cries of residents who live around the dam. They went to visit the dam to inspect it, and they came out with a clean bill of health. Just a few days later, the dikes gave way, and because the river had overflowed banks, dikes gave way, and here we are. So such untold disaster and devastation was actually avoidable. Again, when one looks at how much was budgeted for maintenance of the dam and how much was released, and the total approach of the Borno State government and all other governments across the country with regards to how we spend ecological fund, I think perhaps where we are today would have been totally different. Would the rain have fallen? Yes. But the impact would have been different because we would have been better prepared for it. And moving from the dam itself to the preparedness of the state and state apparatus to respond to the disaster. NEMA is fighting an uphill task. The meteorological agency had been furnishing us with weather updates and forecasting rains. But it seems as if even after Governor Zulum, to his credit, had triggered the crisis management efforts to rally around and begin to respond to it, movement on ground were lethargic, things, equipment were out of place, and everybody was overwhelmed. We have reports that the medical workers, health workers are struggling to deal with the number of people who need help. The IDP camps are recorded to have been overflooded. So you have people who were running away from another disaster, this time man-made, the Boko Haram and security crisis that have befallen Nigeria, particularly in Nigeria northeast. People who had been moved by this conflict were again moved by another disaster. Natural, but perhaps man-made in the case that people who ought to have done certain things seem to have let the ball fall and failed these people. And that's where we are today. Calls are that people should donate, and well, that effort is underway with the US, United Arab Emirates, United Nations, and many non-governmental organizations and international aid agencies pouring in to try to help. The Nigerian Red Cross Society is on the ground to also help. And these efforts are pouring in. We saw visits, solidarity visits by governors, and this is alluding to what Mr. President said. It's across party lines, it's across religious lines, it's across ethnic lines, and this is great news. And that Nigeria is standing together in this time of crisis. But how long can we continue like this? Because in 2023, last year, we had these floodings. In 2022, we had these floodings. In 2019, we had these floodings. 2017, 2015, 2012. We could go on and on and on. And each time the government sits down and puts together some kind of assessment of what happened, and recommendations fly. But they seem to have no way to patch, because right the next year, we are faced with a similar situation, and the government is caught flat-footed, having not implemented anything meaningful from the report of the assessment of the damage of the flooding. So how long will we continue to be here? And this has ramifications across the board. Already, allegations are flying that perhaps some people who dropped the ball are perhaps doing it not just because of incompetence, but maybe something even worse than incompetence. They are looking out to steal funds that accrue from aid agencies. There are people who are thinking that. How true that is, I don't know. But when we continue to see this play out day in, day out, one begins to wonder whether there is a sense of truth in this thought. We can't continue like this. And to even make matters worse, we have 281 inmates who are no longer in prison. We don't know where they are. The correctional services are on their trail, the security agencies are on their trail, but with 2 million people are displaced in these two states. They could be anywhere. Could be among the victims. They could be in some IDP camp. They could be somewhere. And what threat does this pose to the security of the country? We've had security officials come out to say, no, yeah, we know we are on their heels and they do not pose any significant threat. Let's bear in mind that some of those inmates were Boko Haram commanders who were arrested and tried and sentenced for the atrocities they committed. So what's to say that with the security agencies trying to help out all of the victims who have been affected by this flooding, what's to say that some of them wouldn't slip through? And all of the jailbreaks that we've had well over 6,000 people break jail in the past 5 years. It's 4,000 plus still on the run. What guarantees do we have that among these 281, those who are security threats, enemies of the state, number one, haven't or wouldn't find a way to link up with other terrorist elements, especially those who are currently ravaging the northwest and the north central? All of this could have been avoided if the state agencies, whose responsibility it was to make sure that the dam was properly functional, had done their job. So, where do we go from here? These are the thoughts that are on my mind, and if you want to have a say, you want to contribute to our conversation, the numbers will be on the screen. You could drop a message and I will read them the best we can. Or if you want to call in, be kind enough to tell us where you're calling from and tell us your name and make your contribution. I would particularly love to hear someone who's been affected by the flooding in Maiduguri and Yobe State directly, or any other part of the country directly, to tell us how you're coping with what's playing out. So that's what we were looking at today. Where are we in getting those who have fled? And one of the things that stood out, this is just a thought that crossed my mind, those 10 people who were arraigned for participating or organizing and participating in the End Bad Governance protest were actually held at the Kuje Correctional Facility, a high security facility. But we have it that some of the Boko Haram commanders were held in Maiduguri, which is a medium level security. We have my guest on set. A guest is a developmental economist, Dr. Itoro Nelson, joins us from Kano. Good morning and welcome to Political Spectrum.
Good morning. Thank you.
Dr. Iboro, good to have you. You're joining us from Kano. How is the weather there?
Yeah, it's fair. And thank God.
Okay, but from this side of the world, it's been raining. It's been raining all night. And the weather forecasters are saying that we're going to be seeing this rain almost continuously today, tomorrow, and on Thursday. And I'm wondering the impact this would have in the already dire situation that we are facing in Maiduguri and Yobe State particularly, and the rest of Nigeria generally.
Thank you very much. I think I've listened in, although not from the beginning, to the analysis, the brief description that you gave of what is happening in Maiduguri. It's, to say the least, heart-rending and pathetic. But I think that in all honesty, it is something that could have been prevented or the impact reduced to a very, very considerably. This is not the first time that this has happened, just like you've said. And that means that we've had this occur like in the last 10 years. And if you remember the last one that we had, and we are not even able to come out of it very successfully, was in the South-South. Bayelsa was completely submerged. Delta State and a few other parts of the country. And one would have thought that the government would have been proactive. And from the very little information that is available to us, the government visited that place on Tuesday, on Thursday, and by Tuesday the following week, the dam gave in. And when you look at the reports of the government that they brought back, it shows that everything was going well with the dam. But on a spot assessment, actually confirmed that this dam had actually been leaking for quite a long time, and citizens have been raising alarm on the possibility of this danger. But of course, trust our governments, they do not listen to citizens. They do not consider inputs. They run government as if it is anyone that has come into government loves the country or the state much more than those that are outside. So that is what is befalling us. But we're not going to take blames, but we need to take lessons from here, that we have a system that we do not have a maintenance culture. And it happens in most of our critical infrastructures. Today is happening to the dam. We all know about the state of our roads. We all know the state of our other infrastructure. So until it has come on this kind of human emergency or a disaster of large proportion like this, before we can now rise up to do something about it. But the question is, for how long will we continue with this before we learn lessons as a country? The situation in Borno State and vis-a-vis the Northeast had already been deplorable with the insecurity, with the poverty level. So add this to it, you can only imagine what the people are going through at the moment. And to think that the cost of repairing or maintaining that dam, the dikes as it way before it gave in, would have been far smaller than what we are going to have in taking care of the humanitarian condition, the health situation, including even the security impact of the jailbreak that has happened. So a whole combination of this puts the country at a very critical point at this time.
Dr. Iboro, when you look at the reports coming in, for instance, you have reports that about 400 million naira was budgeted to, allocated to the repairs of the Alao Dam, and so far the government of Borno State in the past 6 months has spent only 20 million. That's very abysmal. It's almost as if was it just an issue of negligence, or was it waiting for something like this or wishing something like this to happen? Because I don't know what you think anymore.
I think it's both a combination of negligence and the fact that our government do not consider the plight, the situation. Nothing is an emergency to them. Because, again, like I said, this is something that has given us a warning for over time. We knew about it. So it's not a natural a disaster as it were. It is not. It is a man-made disaster. And it is caused by our government. And we must put the blame rightly where it belongs. It's not a natural disaster. It's a dam, and it has given us sufficient warning. And we budgeted for it. We could have taken remedial measures long before now. We know when the rains come in. It doesn't sweep upon us So it comes at a seasonal thing. So it gives us sufficient time to have done something about it. But again, like I said, the harm had already been done, and we can't go back on it. But the thing is, are we going to learn lessons from it?
That's the question I'm asking.
The degree has happened now in a very large proportion. But remember that other states are affected. Niger State is also one of them. So are we blaming something about the Kainji Dam? What are we doing about it? Because it might also give way in the next few years. So have we done any remedial?
There's an underlying conversation around the Benue with the Cameroonian larger dam, often blamed for the flooding, because at some point the Cameroonians, when a dam is about to be overflooded with water, they open the dam. They just let the floodgates down, and that causes flooding here. That dam was designed and built in the late 70s, early 80s to accommodate about 7 billion cubic meters of water. But right now, its capacity has been reduced by probably 80% due to silting. Now, but that's only one side of this conversation. That's only one side of the problem. The second part is that Nigeria was supposed to build a complementary dam on our side of the Benue in 1981. This is 43 years ago. And we are here. I'm wondering how much will it cost for Nigeria, for instance, to support the Cameroonians to desilt their dam, or to build our own dam compared to the cost of the damage. So this is about us not just identifying the problem, but necessarily, by necessity now, holding people accountable, which is why I'm asking these questions about the money that was spent, the money that was supposed to have been spent, the people who were supposed to have done certain things. But this is going to, God forbid, but the way it is going from our culture, most likely are going to have this conversation again in 2025 if we do not have some system of accountability and holding people responsible for the things that they have not done right.
Definitely, I'm not a pessimist, but it's likely going to happen, because when something has happened over and over and you can actually predict it, it's a sad commentary on our governance, that our government is not responsive as we would have thought it to be. It's heartbreaking, but it's the reality that we have come to live with. And just like you say, we may not even need to go as far as Cameroon to distill, but can we even start with our own in the Benue River Trough to even distill ours? When last did we even distill our own River Benue and River Niger? So it's a whole complex situation that I think as a country that the 37 lives, of course, it might have been underestimated, because when government says that 10 people have died, we can actually multiply it by like 3 or 5. So 37 people have been reported to have died. Over 400,000 are in very critical conditions. So it's something that it's sickening, it's something that is pathetic, and it's something that we must take the blame as a government. Government needs to place the blame where it belongs. It is on them. The various agencies of government that are responsible for this should come out and take the blame. If it is in developed societies, the people that presented those reports should go in for it as of now. And the various agencies that are responsible for this should have come out either to apologize, or their jobs would have been on the line. But trust Nigeria, nothing is going to happen. It's going to be business as usual.
North Korea. I was about to say that North Korea is not the best example to use, particularly with regards to their human rights records and the likes. But they faced a similar situation, and from reports, those who manage, even though if they may not even have been at fault, some people have been executed for failures. But we are continuing to see people talk, people do photo ops. That video, well, to some extent, I would say that when you see the vice president wading the waters like just every other person, it has a boosting effect. When you see Governor Zulum in the flood, in the rain, it has, some way. When someone sees someone who's suffering the flood sees his governor, his leader, in the same place he is, it has a way of lifting the person's spirit. But how far can some of these, I dare say, cosmetic efforts go in alleviating the sufferings that people have gone through these failed policies and inactions of government?
I think, truth be said, that we need a national rebirth, a national reorientation in terms of maintenance of our public and national assets. We need to go back and do a rethink. How often do we go? Like I said, this is happening to the dam for now, but again, do we also take stock of our federal roads? When last did we repair them? How well do we service or maintain other national assets like our airports, like our infrastructure? So all this is a systemic rot. It happens at all levels, the national, the state, and the local level. So it is something that we need to have this conversation over and over and over. Human lives are involved here, and we need to tell our government that you have not done well. And if there is anything that must be said, we must take lessons for next year, not just for a very far future, but just next year. We're going to have the rains again. So between this month, September, and when the next onset of rain will come again, let's watch out. What are we going to do? Because it will give us a short time limit that we can plan. So let's see what we are going to do. Thank you.
Dr. Iboro, the challenge we're having a call from somewhere. Sorry about that. The challenge we're even having is you're saying next year. The Cameroonians are yet to release water from the larger dam. So what you're saying could actually happen in 2 weeks. And we seem not to have put all of our plans in place to prepare for that. But we're almost out of time, and the key question I actually wanted to ask you, I've been so upset I forgot to ask it. This issue of the 281 prisoners that have escaped from the Maiduguri security facility, amongst them are Boko Haram commanders. How much of a security challenge? The authorities have come out to say it's not a big deal, security, they are watching over security. But how much of a challenge it is really?
Very big challenge. Very big challenge. Already, yesterday, the governor of Zamfara State was celebrating some gain with the killing of one of the leaders of the bandit group. And of course, you can be sure it's like taking 2 steps forward and 5 steps backward. This is what we are seeing. And it's a huge, huge challenge in the midst of a high level of poverty and deprivation that we are in. It's a huge challenge, and it's a cause for serious concern by any human being that is living in Nigeria.
And do you trust the authorities who are saying that we've had reports that over 4,000 escaped prisoners are still at large, who with over 6,000 haven't escaped prison in the last 5 years. Out of that, about 4,000 plus are still at large. What confidence do you have in what security agencies are saying that these guys will be brought back to protective custody?
I am pessimistically optimistic, if there is any English like that.
Well,
I am very cautiously optimistic. Thank you.
Well, that's a short one, and that's straight to the point. And that actually echoes sentiments of many people, not just you. Quite a number of people are thinking that if over the past few years we've not been able to apprehend over 4,000 people who escaped, some of them escaped from Kuje Correctional Facility, we cannot say that even in the midst of this upheaval, this flooding with over 2 million people displaced, that 281 people wouldn't find a way to hide among the victims. But let's just hope. I'm an optimist. Perhaps, maybe, I don't know how it play out. Maybe we may see a situation where security agents are able to catch these people and bring them back under the law. Dr. Iboro Nelson joined us from Kano. I hope that you stay safe where you are, and I hope that you'll be back soon so that you could join us in the studio. We certainly have to have this conversation again.
Thank you. I will. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
That was Dr. Iboro. Iboro joined us from Kano, and quite some thought-provoking angles where she talked about the government's efforts and the record of the government in maintaining things. And what really caught my attention, of course, was when she said we have a very poor culture of maintenance. And we are talking about dams today. Who's to say that it won't be a bridge, a road, an airport some other day? Well, that's how far we can go on the political spectrum today. We'll be sure to keep you updated on development as they go on in not just Borno State, but across the country. Be sure to join us tomorrow for another edition of Political Spectrum. But for me, it's goodbye.